Hello everyone, yes we are back, and this time with the biggest BMW yet. We're with the X7 and it's in facelifted M60 mild hybrid turbocharged V8, 750 Newton meters. Oh my god, everything monstrous form. We're gonna hit the road right away. Yes, BMW has seen fit to slap some new lipstick onto the face of its biggest model yet, and it's gone to town on the technology under the bonnet and in the cabin as well. In fact, so new is the M60i that BMW doesn't have any press video of it yet, hence our use of a 40i model in the clips. But rest assured, the car I'm driving is the M-tuned behemoth. Welcome to the very plush interior of the X7 M60i. Now, you might be thinking, M60i, there's an M50i, why is there an M60i? Well, this is the facelift car, which means it gets a different front end design, still has those enormous and very controversial front grille,s but I actually think it looks a bit better with the slightly slimmer headlights. It somehow masks the enormousness of the grills a little bit. But the key thing that's different in this car, and really what has changed its name from an M50i to an M60i, is that this V8 engine, that 4.4 litre BMW V8 motor, which we know and love and still sounds fantastic, well now it works in tandem with a mild hybrid 48 volt electric system, which, well, I suppose is there to trim CO2, but it also ensures that this car now has 530 horsepower and 750 Newton meters of torque. It clears the 0 to 60 mile an hour dash, or the 0 to 62 mile an hour dash, well under 5 seconds, 4.7 seconds according to the paperwork, and that's despite this thing weighing 2.6 tons, which is considerably heavier than my 2-bedroom flat. It's a big heavy thing, but it promises enormous performance. First things first though, I'll talk you through the very basics of the interior tweaks. We mentioned the design. Now the exterior has had a few tweaks here and there, but it's still fundamentally an enormous and very dominating car on the road. And doesn't it feel it when driving on British roads? It feels enormous as you'd expect. The interior is also mildly tweaked. Key changes are mostly centered in the new infotainment system, which inherits obviously the widescreen display that we know from other models, but it also gets augmented reality as well. Fundamentally, you've got two screens, and on the left side screen, it splits in half when you use the BMW's built-in sat-nav, and half of it will show you an augmented display with an arrow that points in the directions you're supposed to go. Now that should make it very easy to follow. Now we're on a motorway, I can test out how this new and tweaked powertrain feels. Let's drop below the speed limit, there's no one behind me. Foot down. I mean, that's powerful and that's quick. Straight up to motorway speeds. Sounds good. The engine doesn't sound synthesized at all, which I'm happy about. It just has a proper, genuine V8 tone. Now we still have drive modes as well, so if I stick it to Sport, click down with the manual shift paddles, straight into Sport Plus, drop down to the speed of the lorry behind me, and that was 50 to 70 in a couple of seconds. It's quick, very, very quick, as you would expect. And it sounds terrific. That V8 burble is just lovely. But it isn't snap, crackle and pop ASBO spec like you get on some other cars. It just makes a really nice sound, and then the exhaust seems to be pretty quiet from where I'm sitting. Put it back into comfort mode, because I think a lot of people are just going to spend time driving this car in that mode, because you buy this car with this engine partly because it's so effortlessly quick. And now I can test on the motorway and barely touching the accelerator, and according to this dial which tells me what percentage of energy I'm using about 10% of energy to be moving at motorway speed. And now back on an A road, but quite a twisty one, I can now start talking about how this car handles, because it's an M60, so obviously there is some M tuning in there. It's not a proper M-blooded model, but the air suspension, the steering, and of course the engine have been tuned to offer some entertainment. And now the interesting thing, because it's got air suspension, you can set it to different heights. So if I click it to Sport, which we'll return to, we're just in comfort, lower the car by one click. There are about 6 or 7, as far as I can see, levels listed on the dial. But it has firmed up the ride. I can definitely feel it's a bit stiffer, but it's still very cushioned. If I drive over some cat sides, I know I'm going over them, but it's a very, very soft feeling through the car. And the engine as well, obviously now is much more reactive. So if I, oh, that sounds so good. Fundamentally, you just got 750 Newton meters of torque enhanced now because of that mild hybrid. So it just means what was already an amazingly reactive and very elastic engine is now just even more effortless in its delivery. So even in comfort mode, I can feel the instantaneousness of that accelerator pedal. I mean, even with the first kiss of the throttle, I can feel there's just a smooth delivery of power, which I assume must be that 48 volt technology, must be that mild hybrid system. But then you get that lovely building delivery of power and muscle from the V8, which, despite being almost silent when you're off throttle, and pretty much silent even when you're on mild throttle, makes a right old riot when you put your foot down. It's still quite muted and it's far away, the noise, but it's a real muscular tone. I love that sound. And the car as well, despite definitely feeling extremely high, I feel like I'm sat above everyone. I almost feel like a lorry. I can see over the van ahead of me. So I'm sat really high in a really prominent position, really big bonnet. The car feels like it should be pretty top heavy, but it just feels so agile. Let's see what it's like round bends. Now I've just let the car ahead go away. We're on a national speed limit road. I see a corner ahead of me. God, that power delivery. Oh. Yeah, it's amazing. Just goes around corners, no problems whatsoever. Tiny bit of body roll, but basically it's flat. That's so impressive. The air suspension, I mean, we know that from the M50i. I mean, that's not changed with the M60i, but it's still so impressive to feel. And then because you've got that X-Drive all-wheel drive system, it feels like when you put your foot down around a corner, rather than you may be aggravating some understeer or anything, the car just pulls you into the corner even tighter. It's so rewarding. Proper bends, wow. So much composure, so much grip. And the roads are greasy today as well, so it's really accentuating how easy this car finds going relatively quickly through corners. It's 2.6 tons. I'm basically steering a cathedral through bends on a B road at the national speed limit. And the brakes are monstrous as well. In fact, the brakes are really powerful. They're nice and easy to modulate as well. It's not too grabby. The top of the pedal is quite soft in its reaction, and then it does build the more you press down, but it's really easy to modulate. So you feel enormously confident on the brakes. I've just come into a village, so we've slowed down from the national speed limit, and I mean, yeah, it's 2.6 tons. I'm gonna stop saying that, but it still blows my mind. And this thing does not feel its weight in any way whatsoever when you put your foot down, when you go around the bends, or when you hit the brakes. It really defies logic, it defies physics. I should also comment on just how quiet the car feels. I mean, the engine, I love the fact that you can hear the rumble and it sort of sloshes through the gears in a lovely way. The gears sort of fall into one another, and there's just this lovely sensation of momentum building so smoothly. But come off throttle and coast, and I mean at 30, 40 miles per hour, I can almost hear my heartbeat. It's so quiet. The rumble of the engine is such a comforting sound. I mean, these electric cars that we hear out there now are so nice and quiet, and that's such a nice thing in many ways, but you get in something like this and it's actually a lovely moment to have that rumble in the background. But come off the power, and given the size and the width, especially the width of the tyres on this car, for there to be next to no road noise is really very impressive. It's so insulating in here. You're so isolated from the outside world. I mean, the visibility is terrific around the car. Really tall door mirrors, obviously great commanding view of the road ahead. View behind is obstructed a little bit when the rear seats are up. This is a 7-seater, and the car is currently running with its seats in the boot folded upright. So the view behind is obstructed, but as soon as you put it in reverse, you've got a widescreen view of your rear end. So basically, the visibility is fantastic, and it's just so easy therefore to drive the car, and so relaxing to drive the car even on a narrow lane. Such a lovely thing to drive, it really is. Even if it's a bit silly, it's so big. It's way too big for the UK surely, and having all that power and that torque in a petrol engine in the UK is just completely unnecessary. But my God, is this thing easy to fall for. It's so nice. Well, I'm not surprised to say that was mighty impressive. This is a mighty car at 2.6 tons, but with that turbocharged V8 and now with mild hybrid technology, it gets down a road so effortlessly. I mean, this thing is enormous, make no mistake about that, and yet it corners like a sports saloon. It goes around bends so comfortably, and there's tons of grip as you'd expect. I mean, the interior as well. I think possibly the best thing about this car, aside from the engine, is the interior of this thing. It's so comfortable and so plush, and with 3 rows of seating, 7 spaces in this car, it's so practical. If, of course, you can afford it. I mean, this car, as it sits here, whoops, is £116,000. I mean, these start at over 100 grand, but if you can afford it, I totally get it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video as much as I liked pretending I was very wealthy while driving this thing. If you did, do click the like button and of course subscribe to the channel. See you soon.